In other news, for decades, the ultra-orthodox community in Israel has had an exemption from military and most national service in favor of religious studies. The exemption sparking an ongoing and highly contentious debate, though. Yet, despite a bill on the exemptions being set to come up for discussion this week, the cabinet postponed the meeting over reported disagreements. And joining me now with more is former Yesh Atid party Knesset member Rabbi Dov Lipman. Rabbi, thanks so much for being with us again. Firstly, the bill itself. What will it reportedly include, and how might it affect the Haredi community?
There's so much misinformation about what's actually included in this bill. It's a bill that was actually drafted by the Defense Department based on what their needs are in the military and what they think is realistic for the Haredi community. So the truth is, it will not expand the numbers of soldiers that are serving by a significant number. It'll be a little bit larger, possibly, than we have right now, but there's an emphasis on the point that it's young men who are not truly studying Torah, the religious studies, day and night, as they're supposed to be doing if they're getting the exemption. And it lays out options for national service, for other kinds of options as well, and also, very importantly, has impact on employment, allowing them to go to work at an earlier stage. So it's not some kind of revolutionary law which is going to go into the yeshivot, to religious seminaries, and bring the young men out and go to the army.
So why do you think the meeting was delayed? Why was it pushed off in the first place? Where's the disagreement here?
If you look even within the current coalition, where you have some who might want to see the legislation going even further, they do want to see perhaps more of an equality when it comes to the national service. I wouldn't be surprised if the Arab members of the coalition have some issues. The Arab parties have traditionally been very against any legislation that goes and impacts someone who has a religious ideology, because they also don't serve in the military, and perhaps they feel that it will infringe on that right. So there are many different areas within the coalition itself which could be fault points. And then they also do want to be very careful. Remember, you have a coalition of 61, and there's a very vocal opposition, and they're concerned possibly about the timing and how the vocal opposition will perhaps rally many in Israel against what they might see as religious coercion or overstepping their bounds. So I think they want to step very, very delicately here and make sure that the timing is right, and also that they have the entire coalition, all 61, on board for every single detail of that legislation.
All right, so let's talk now for a moment about national service as an alternative to military conscription. I know that you're a fan of promoting that, especially amongst the Haredi sector. Is that something that they would be behind, that the Haredi sector at large would be behind? Is that something that the Arab sector might actually come around for? And where does that fall in with this bill or with others on the table?
When we worked on this similar legislation in 2014, when I was a member of Knesset, I learned very quickly that there's a difference between what the Haredi politicians will say to the world vocally and what they'll say in closed doors in our meetings. They do understand that there has to be some kind of a change. They don't want this issue on the table all along, and they do recognize that there are young men who should leave the rabbinic seminaries and go do some kind of service. So we worked very hard, first of all, on having units in the army that were dedicated to the ultra-orthodox, but there are still many who are against serving. So yes, I do believe that the more we open up national service options, whether it's in Magen David Adom, in serving in the ambulance corps, whether it's all kinds of other areas where they are already in the ultra-orthodox community serving in very high numbers and volunteering, let's transform that into an actual national service. And I do believe that certainly quietly the ultra-Orthodox leadership will very much embrace that, and there's no doubt that in the Arab sector they will as well. That will definitely play a major role in solving this problem overall.
Do you think that a mandatory national service for all across sectors and demographics would create a stronger sense of patriotism and unity in the country, or might it actually backfire in some areas?
Well, I do want to be very clear. There is a role of service of the elite scholars who are truly studying day and night. And by the way, in meetings with Yair Lapid, the current foreign minister, the head of Yesh Atid, he has said as well, we have, as a country, there is a value, a Jewish state, in young men who are studying the religious texts day and night. It's a value and a service, and we should call that a service. But yes, saying all have to serve is very important for a country, and saying those who serve by studying Torah day and night, that's one form of service. There's national service, there's community service, there's army service, but the value, I've met with members of parliament from around the world who are jealous of Israel's overall ethos, that service is a part of our culture. So let's make that real, and let's make sure that everyone and whatever they're doing, that is called service to the country, and bring us together around that ideal.
All right, Rabbi Dov Lipman, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.